Welcome to the Rotary Club of Jonesboro. Ooh, kind of loud. Five-time reigning Club of the Year. Yay! Inspirational moment from General George Patton. Courage is fear, holding on a minute longer. It's my pleasure to introduce Rusty Guinn, manager and owner of the Credit Bureau of Jonesboro. He moved to Jonesboro in 1982 to manage the company and purchase it in 1990. The company's been incorporated since 1947. He studied at the University of North Texas, graduating in 1970. He was recently reappointed by the governor to continue his service on the State Board of Collection Agencies through 2024. He is their current chairman. He's been married to his wife Sheila since 1968 and is a proud dad and grandfather. He has extensive knowledge and experience in the credit and collection industry. The Credit Bureau of Jonesboro has been exclusively a collection agency since 1990. Rusty's been a member of our club since 1983 and is a five-time Paul Harris Fellow. He served as District 6150 Sergeant at Arms for 11 years. Yeah, it seemed like 20. Rusty, welcome. Thank you so much for coming.
And I consider it an honor that all you guys didn't get up and walk out. I mean, that's what I've done on a couple of meetings, not all of them, but every once in a while. We're going to talk about today two different things. We're going to talk about credit reporting, everybody's file, and we're going to talk about a little bit of information on collections if we have enough time when we get down to the end. This is a sample of a credit report that you see up on the screen, and you probably can't see much about it. And the reason that it is that you can't fit it all onto one page. We're going to break it down into sections, and at the end of this talk, I'll give you some telephone numbers and some website addresses of the three companies that actually provide credit reporting in the United States. First section we're going to talk about is basically the top part of it is identifying information such as from there to there is pretty much information that you provide. Starts out though, you've got a score, a credit score, and then some explanations on the Equifax file that explain what those are. It says amount past due. It may not be true. I mean, that means both. It could be either way. But basically, the score goes up and down. It starts out about maybe 500. I've never seen anything less than about a 497. Goes all the way up to 900. And you have identifying information on here. That also tells how long somebody's had their file listed. The advantage to that, if you know how old the person is, and such as it was me, and I was applying for credit, and I had a file that said that it was opened in, say, 2011, you probably would look at me and say, what happened before that? So, identifying information on all credit reports tells you who they got the information from. There are three companies, and one of them is Equifax, the next one is TransUnion, the next one is Experian. This identifying information here is provided by you every time you update a credit file or every time that you apply for credit. You can, if you apply for a credit card, your current information is going to be updated. You have three former addresses, and you got your name, and if you have a spouse, your spouse's name would be listed there. Something to note is that every person has their own credit file. You have joint accounts on the credit file that you have with your spouse, but everybody has their own, and you're not allowed by federal law to pull anybody's credit report unless they have given you authorization to do that. That also includes your spouse. Although I don't think your spouse would sue you probably if you did, or report you to anybody, but it is a federal law that everybody gets their own file. The next part we're going to talk about is when the negative information starts. This is public records. It would be things like bankruptcies and liens. Bankruptcies are two types. There's a Chapter 7, which means that you're going to pay back part of it, and that stays on your file for 7 years. A Chapter 11 stays on your file for 10 years, and that's the one where you say you're not going to pay back anything. Collection accounts stay on your file for 7 years from the date that they were the date of last payment, basically 7 years from that date. And all of these, this is when the stuff starts to happen that affects your credit score, causing it to go up or down. If you have collection accounts on there, they only affect your score for 3 years. So if you decide you don't want to pay something for 3 years, jump right on it. Back to the file again. Now the next section we're going to talk about is the pretty much the meat of the credit report. This first section right up here, from there to there, is credit cards. And then you've got open accounts here, such as American Express. Then you've got mortgage companies' information. These have good information listed. They have the date that it was reported, the date it was opened, the credit limit, the high credit, the term per month, and then the balance. And they have a thing that affects your score more than anything else. It's the credit utilization percentage. You can see that this person has a total potential credit of $9,500 on his credit cards, and he has used $82.38 of that, which translates into about a 78% credit utilization. The ideal is to have your credit utilization down below 50% if at all possible. And as you start to go up above 50%, you start to lose points on your credit score. The credit people come up with an algorithm that analyzes all of this information. So your score, if you called up and say, well, what caused this score to be this amount? They won't be able to tell you. They say, well, because the machine did it, pretty much. American Express has no balance owed, no maximum balance in most cases. Mortgage accounts are whatever they are. Those don't affect your score if they're brand new. These up here do affect your score because old credit, ones that you've had for several years, I got a JCPenney card that I think I got in about 1987 or something like that. It's really been there a long time. I don't ever use it. In fact, I don't know where it is, but I do have one. So that actually adds points to my score. And if I go out and I get new credit, then your score will be affected by that for a short period of time. And the reason that is that credit's always been or credit granting has always been a handshake deal. You go into the banker and say, I would like to borrow $50,000 and I want to pay you back on a monthly basis, $500 a month. If they were to give you that option, what they want is every month by the due date, they want $500. They don't want you to wait 3 months and then pay them $1,500. That's totally unacceptable. So the other thing that affects your score pretty much, people have, I hear on radio and television ads that people are saying, I found an account that I didn't need, so I decided I would cancel it. Well, here's what happens. Let's say you have 4 accounts, each one with a potential balance of $10,000. If you have used 10% use one of those accounts up to 10,000, then your credit utilization score for that would be 25%. That makes simple. If you have used 10 more thousand, then it would go up to 50%. Now, let's say that you had 2 cards that you never used and didn't plan on using, and you decide, okay, I'm just going to cancel those things. I'm going to get them off there. Since this potential balance disappears from your credit report once you do that, then you take off 2 of those, which means that you got a 100% utilization rate on your credit cards because you had 2 accounts with them that were maxed out at $10,000 a piece. So that's the long and short of that stuff for you. Past dues on credit cards don't have the same effect on your score as do the past dues on a mortgage account. Mortgage past dues are considered a big deal, apparently, to the credit granting people. Back to the score. Now we're going to go to another section that people have difficulty understanding. It's the inquiries. Inquiries stay on there 2 years, 24 months. And if you have 1 or 2 inquiries, that's, and say in a 6-month period, that's pretty acceptable, and it does not affect your score at all, hardly, maybe 1 point. If you have 10 inquiries in a, say, a 6-month period, then that will affect your score, and it goes back to the old credit versus new. The loan officers are looking to have a consistent payment history. That's pretty much what they look for. That you have lived up to what you said you were going to, okay? If you go out and charge or get up like 6 new cards, then all of a sudden the lender does not know what you're planning on doing with that. They may think that you're getting ready to skip town and move all the way to Cherokee Village. See, I was paying attention. But they don't know. So it's an unknown quality, and that's the reason that it will affect your score dramatically. Okay. Now this is how you actually find out about your credit information. Equifax, usually the best way that I've found to get a hold of them is to use the web and just go directly to their website. TransUnion and Experian are the other 2 companies, and that's their telephone numbers and so forth. If anybody needs those, I can provide it to you. Right there, you can see what it tells you to do. If you're going to write to them, you have to give them all this information so they can find you. I have found that credit reporting companies are responsive to your questions and your needs. And the reason that is the same reason that this style of credit report that I've been showing you has not changed in probably 15 years. It still has the basic buckets all still filled. They keep upgrading the algorithm on the credit score and how that affects you, but it hadn't changed. And the reason that is, if you are used to reading a TransUnion file and all of a sudden you're presented with a Equifax file, you're going to have a slight amount of difficulty understanding what to do. I'm used to reading Equifax files on a weekly basis because as the chairman of the State Board of Collection Agencies in Arkansas, my job is to, when we get a new applicant for a manager position, I have to look at their credit file to determine whether they are actually live up to what they're supposed to. And if they have had 2 significantly past due accounts within the last 2 years, or last 5 years actually, they will be probably either turned down or I will ask them for an explanation on it. If it's medical accounts that are collection accounts, then I definitely will ask them for an explanation on it. And actually, if they can offer proof that they have paid those, then their application would be granted to be a manager of their particular agency. Now, you can pay any of these other 3 companies, to get a copy of your credit file. And you'll also pay a little bit to get a copy of your score. You can also go to annualcreditreport.com right there. And that is not annualcreditreports.com. It is not freecreditreports.com. It's very specific. You go to any of those others and no telling where you're going to end up. There's lots of companies that provide this service. Credit Karma, for instance, they provide service. They provide notifications on your files if somebody's made an application. Equifax has two products that I use, and one of them is Credit Watch, and one of them is Score Watch or Score Power. Credit Watch, you have to set up your own parameters on what you're going to accept. And say you have a credit card. In my case, I have it set up to where if the credit card increases the balance by more than 400% in a short period of time, then I get an email sent to me that tells me that that is happening. Also, I'll get an email sent to me every time that somebody pulls a copy of my credit file from Equifax. Well, they cost for those two products probably $150 total, and I do it once a year. The Credit Watch gives you the option of looking at your credit file and if it's Equifax anyway, and your Equifax score as many times you want to. You can update it on a daily basis if you want to. Also allows you to have one time a year where you can pull all three companies' credit report information that they have on you. The Score Power, I have mine set up to if my score changes I get a notification. Now I look at all that as a sort of like a security alarm. I have a security alarm on my cabin up on the Spring River, and if I get a notification from that security alarm company that I have a potential break-in, then I realize that it's going to be 15 minutes before Fulton County Police can get there to find out whether or not it's a true situation. If they send a notification that my place was on fire, then by the time the Mammoth Springs Volunteer Fire Department gets there, there won't be anything left but ashes on the ground. And my advice to them is let it burn. They told me one time when I first got up there that they were not going to come because they're volunteers. And I said, what? They said, yep, we don't respond. Now I've been advised that they do respond. We are going a lot faster than I thought. So the next section I'm going to talk about a little bit is we're in the collection business. And I have a thing that I call the 4 P's of collections. People pay persistent people. And that's all a collection agency does. We got representative in our office from Professional Credit here in town, and he'll probably tell you the same thing, that all his people do is call, and all our people do is call and send notices and discuss accounts with people to try to collect it. Just keep in mind that every bit of money that you do not collect is profit. And the reason that is, you have already collected all the money and paid all the bills. Whatever you had left over was profit. So anything that you don't collect is still profit. It's just not profit that you have in your hand. If an account is with agencies, who should you use? Well, we all do things very similarly. We operate under the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, the Arkansas Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, which mirrors the federal, and the Consumer Financial CFPB, Consumer Financial Bureau Agency, or Protection Agency. Okay. We don't deal with those people very much, but we do get inquiries from them, sometimes daily, when people are making a complaint, and you have to answer those complaints before you go. We just answer them the same day we get them. other thing that's probably just as important is if an account is uncollectible to you, I mean, that there's no way that you're going to ever get the money from that person. Guess what's going to happen when you refer it to a collection agency? They're going to probably say, well, there's no way you're going to get the money out of that person, because if it's uncollectible, it really is uncollectible. The only advantage to having a collection agency is that they spend all day long doing nothing but making telephone calls and writing letters for you. If you have someone that you've hired and they're going to be your collector, well, they also are going to have a lot of other stuff they have to do. I bet you. You're not going to let them just be sitting there when they're not actually making telephone calls. So what you end up doing, they end up putting the collection calls off or the working of the accounts off until it's too late. And you probably should consider turning over information to a collection agency between 90 and 120 days. After 120 days, it starts to get more difficult to collect it. And it's also good if you, going in, gather enough information that helps them do their job, such as addresses, social security number if possible, things of that nature. If they have a job, that is a real plus to a collection agency, because they will file, if you as a business will allow them to, they will file suit to collect the money for you. In our office, we record all conversations in and out of the office, and we have an inviolate rule right here. We do not violate the federal laws or state laws, period. And our people don't treat people rudely either. If one of my clients calls and says that one of my collectors was rude to somebody on the phone, then I'm going to go and get a copy of that conversation and email it to my client. We're both going to listen to it and going to make some kind of decision. If it's a bad decision for my collector, then they won't be there. We just don't tolerate that kind of action. I would rather be in court with an adverse person on the other side who used to work for me than I would let them violate the federal law. I believe that's it. You guys got any questions? I should have asked you all earlier to do that, and I forgot to. Yes, sir.
I may should be asking this of a banker rather than you, Rusty, but last time I refinanced my house, you got a credit report, but the financial institution would not share with me the credit report that I paid for.
They're not supposed to.
They're not supposed to, even though I paid for it.
No, you can get your own, but I'm not being smug when I say that.
Yeah.
And for the most part, financial institutions do not provide you with a copy of the credit report that they've pulled. And I think it's probably a requirement I know it is with Equifax. I don't know about TransUnion, but most of them have the same information.
It just really, I must admit it did irritate me to know that on the line I had paid for the credit report, but they would not share with me what the credit report said.
So you can go back in and pull your own. And I recommend that you pull a copy of your credit report by some means, maybe once a month or so at least. Remember this thing of having the house broken into and nobody told you for a month? Well, bad things can happen in a very short period of time. Anybody else? Yes, sir. Anybody? Whoever gets the mic next.
What is your opinion of the Credit Karma and Mint services that they provide? Are they accurate? Is that a suitable alternative to pulling your credit report from Equifax or whoever every month?
They pull the same credit report that you would get if you contacted them. Now, my opinion is a lot of them advertise it's a free credit report. It ain't free. I don't care what they say. They've got something else that they're going to sell you that is not going to be something that you're going to use a lot. Now, I know people that use Credit Karma, and they seem very happy with it. As long as you get something that notifies you anytime anything derogatory or just about anything that happens to your file, you're going to want to know about it. Anybody else? Got one more.
What do you think about credit freezes for security? Is that a good idea?
horrible. And I'll tell you why. If you freeze your credit, with Equifax anyway, if you freeze your credit, you're going to put in a PIN number. If you forget the PIN number, you are never getting your file, ever. And I think that credit grantors, tell you the truth, I don't know what credit grantors think about it, but a bank officer, you would have to provide them with the information, your PIN number, so that they could access your file, and it just throws another hiccup in there. It's anything that's on your file that is not supposed to be there. You will get you send that into the credit reporting agency, and you will get a notification within 30 days of what the disposition of that was. It's going to come out of one of three ways. They're going to say, the credit grantor agreed with you and they've changed it. The second thing they'll say is the credit grantor disagrees with you and they're not going to change it. And the third thing, if the credit grantor does not respond within that 30-day period, it says a reasonable time in the Fair Credit Reporting Act. I don't know what reasonable time is, but we've always considered it to be 30 days or less. So if they don't respond during that period of time, then the account totally disappears, and it's just like it was never there. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Hey, Rusty, in the last year and a half or so during the COVID era, have you seen more people complain about things showing up on their credit report from like mistaken or identity theft, where things are showing up on people's credit report for, something like a credit card account they didn't open, something of that nature?
Well, since we're not actively providing credit reports in our office, I don't have I haven't heard anything about that, whether it's good or bad. Because if you contact the credit reporting agency, they're going to be very responsive to you, because remember, they only benefit by selling accurate information. If they start getting a bunch of inaccurate information, they're going to get a bad reputation and nobody is going to be using them. We got a banker standing right behind him, and I bet you he'd say he needs accurate information. We got two of them. Boy, they're just everywhere. Anybody else have a question? Yes, sir.
If you see an inquiry on your credit report that you don't know anything about, would that be of any concern?
You would dispute it immediately to whoever supplied the information. What happens when you dispute an account is that credit reporting companies all subscribe to a service that if you send in a dispute to Equifax, they're going to send the same, whatever the results are, they're going to send it to the other two companies also. They just share the information. And that makes everybody's file turn out to be a whole lot cleaner. What's an inquiry? Anytime you apply for a loan or a credit card, they will sign into the credit reporting system that they use, and it will go onto your file. They're going to contact, say, Equifax, and Equifax then would show it as an inquiry on the bottom of your file. Inquiries stay on there for 24 months. There's a type of inquiries that don't all cost you points, and that would be, say, for an automobile loan. If you're dealing with Chrysler Credit, if you have 10 automobile loans that you've applied for, it means you've been out shopping your stuff or shopping your information, or mortgage loans, same thing. Then those, I think it's within a 30-day period, all of them that occur for autos, for instance, count as one inquiry. And that keeps you from having your credit report, your credit score go in the tank. Yes, ma'am. Hang on.
Here you go, Brenda.
Rusty, what is considered a soft inquiry?
Banks, credit card companies, they can just do an update of their information on you, and it doesn't appear. If, let's say that a bank pulled a copy of it called for account review, if you signed into your own credit file, you would see that inquiry. But if another bank pulled a copy of the credit report, that one would not show up. It would be just for account review. And soft inquiries also occur when companies that are wanting to expand their credit card business ask for everybody in these zip codes, like 72401, for instance. I want a list of all the people who have a credit score of whatever, so say 700. So that would be a soft inquiry, because you'd get a notification from the credit card company that you were qualified, even pre-qualified for this credit card. And when you get that notification, if you sign the paperwork and decide you want that information, you want to apply for that credit card, then all of a sudden that soft inquiry, which wouldn't show up anywhere, and soft inquiries don't show up on your file, those kinds that are used for marketing purposes only. But once you sign the paperwork and apply for the loan, then they would get another credit report, and it would be a hard inquiry at that time. Anybody else?
Anyone else?
I didn't know we stayed in here a whole hour. I mean, I was kind of disappointed.
When Wells Fargo Bank, which we don't have any representatives in here, several years ago, had all these false credit cards that they had issued to individuals that were their clients, that would have affected those clients' credit score, would it not have?
It would. And if the individual disputes that, and you should still go through the same dispute process. I know that seems like a terrible thing to happen, that you've got to go through a 30-day waiting period. And if you're trying to get a home loan, then it really is important to you, because sometimes time is of the essence. But just relate back to the time that we used to do before we became computerized. We would do a mortgage file for a bank, and we would have to investigate everything on there. From the time we started until the time we notified them of our results might be 30 days. Right now, I can be driving my car in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and have a motor fall out on the ground. I can go into a Chevrolet dealer there in that town and get an answer to a credit, whether they're going to offer me credit to buy another car that does have a motor. I can get that information almost instantaneously anywhere in the United States. So it's a trade-off that we all do, where sometimes we like things when it's really fast, and sometimes we hate them when they're really fast. But in this case, it probably works out for the better compared to how we used to do it. Anybody else? Y'all want some jokes or something? I mean, all right. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Rusty. That was very informative, very good. We enjoyed it. You can tell by all the questions that were asked. Thought for the day: fellowship isn't just what we do for each other. Fellowship is what we do together for the world. Eric Bryant. Okay, thank you very much. We're adjourned.